Okay, opening the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee at 5:30 p.m. and let's start with a roll call.
Thank you. Chair Rob Weltman. Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele.
Present.
Tova Callender. Everett Dowling. Lehua Huddleston Hapoka. I believe she's excused. Yes, okay. Vernon Kalanikau.
Here.
Randall Leach.
Here.
Okay. Mike Moran. Cody Nemeth. Wayne Nishiki. Kyoki Feltzer. Jennifer Sullivan. And Brian Ward. Thank you.
Excellent. It's better than last week. Velina mai na lalo ki kumike o lalo o kai ula no ka papa o lala no Maui hema. A velina mai no ho e ka po e o ki ke ena ho lala o Maui o ki kalana o Maui a me ka lehu lehu o Maui ne. E ho o pa a kako i ke iahi I na kuhi pono ho no ka ho hana ana I na mahele aina. Ma hope e kuka kako I ke ano ho hana ana I na apana o maalaya a kihi a kau I ka vai hiki mai ai. A few housekeeping things before we jump into everything. So our first agenda item today is to finish reviewing and deciding on land use designations that will be used throughout South Maui. After that, we'll finish the Ma'alaya land use designation. We had one left, that's for the Ma'alaya land use designations. And then we'll review the proposed land uses in the North Kihei sub-area. Now, this is a continued meeting from May 3rd, and the rules for oral testimony are a little different from at last week's meeting. Someone who testified on one of the three topics last week will not be able to testify on that same topic today. Testimony on a topic will be taken just before we start on the topic. So if you are testifying remotely, please do not turn off your speaker. Watch the meeting coordinator to signal when you're at 2.5 minutes and at the full 3 minutes of testimony time, unless you're keeping track of the time yourself. Testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, with 1 minute to respond to follow-up questions. Before we jump into public testimony, Vernon has a few thoughts to share with us.
You almost there? Oh, just choose one on the last row or second. Yeah, maybe go back some more. So a week went by since last Wednesday. I think we're getting into the meat of the most difficult part of our committee. I just gonna be straight up, man. It's hard. You know, all the different layers of zoning, policies, actions, wherever we gotta put our language and stuff. And do we keep it in the community plan or do we put it in zone? We don't know those things. And then on top of that, this template that we're working on is the West Maui template. You know, as I know most of us here is, you know, we need our own. But if West Maui never happened, then we'll probably be in a deeper hole, starting from scratch. But I still trust that, you know, we still need to come up with our own for South Maui. Only because in West Maui, they get to plan Mauka to Makai. Over here, we do not. And in our plan, we include Waikapu and the Moko of Wailuku. And part of Lahaina at Ukumehami, that's 3 mokus. That's not traditionally correct. You know, that's wrong. So already, and when we started this plan, it was a struggle from day one since we started this plan. So I just saying that, you know, here we are in South Maui, we kind of being shortchanged. That's the history, you know. When we look back on on funding or conservation protection, whatever it may be, I always felt South Maui was always shortchanged in our community, and others were celebrated or looked at more than South Maui. So what you see in the middle here, if you can go back, go forward a couple more slides. So if you look at this slide, so I'm showing you this because this is what's been bothering me for 1 month. So this is in the Laie wetland, and I showing you this because that area right there used to be all kiawe trees. You see in the corner, upper corner on the right-hand corner, I just got this yesterday morning on that site. This is a coral head. This is a coral head. And on the right-hand side, where you see that fence, you have the black fence and you have like another fence. It's weird that on that side of the fence is wetland, and this side of the fence on the right-hand side is not wetland, because we're dealing with TMKs, right? You know, a friend, Char Schulenberg, I think 2 years ago, she found a conch shell, sent that out to be studied, carbon data study. It came back, I believe, 600 years old. 600 years old. You know, imagine what that might be in the same location. Next slide, please. I'm showing you guys this because this impact, you know, planning department, all the different departments, and us as committee members. So you see in the dark section on the bottom, where in the corner, in the right-hand corner, where I found this coral head, and you see how far the ocean is. You know, how many hundreds or maybe a few thousands of years ago, the water was more up. There's more habitation in this area. So the reason why this area I sensitive to is because there's a sand mound there in the kiawe trees that should not have been touched, that used to carry over to the right-hand side of the Lipoa Street subdivision that was developed, where quite a bit of E was found back in the early 70s when they developed that. So that's why I came out. I do what I do. And so we're trying to improve the cultural aspect, you know, along with planning, those involved, the landowner, but damage done because all these kiawe trees, history, and there is reference to this place, the bat no more the house now to go back to. When you take all these kiawe trees out, you're taking away food, not only for the bat, but other life in general. Next slide, please. You see the bottom? That's wetland. You see where it's being cleared out? That's not wetland. But what happens, Mauka, going to impact Makai, right? Right below. So in the middle part, that's the sand dune that used to carry on to the left-hand side of the Lipoa subdivision. That sand dune is named the Pu'one Sand Dune Complex. If that's true, that sand dune complex goes all the way to Sand Hills, Maui Lani, and so on. Next slide, please. This is about Salkihi Road, the Laie, Mulivai that we know. Next slide. So I just talked with Karen earlier because I just like understand, you know, how the permit just gets signed. but I learning tonight there's many layers involved. So next to this house, on the right hand side, there's a permit for a landowner to build over there. For me, how that works, I still like learn. I still trying to understand. And I'm going to find out, but there's many layers as I learned tonight. But then, oh man, we're talking about building below Salkihi Road. You know, management retreat we're talking about. So those are the things that sink in my head. Next slide, please. Then the next slide. So this is above, right at the shoreline, and way on top, as far as you can see, the kiawe trees, and that is where this coral head came from. The drone is up above the shoreline right now, but you see how far the water used to go up back in the day. Next slide. Okay, that's it. So what I'm challenged with is is I like CPAC stop. You know, I don't like them continue because for me personally, I can work with the developers. And I believe the community can work with the developers and the planning. If we get together and we focus on each area, each aupua, what works, everything. So if the developer and the community agree, then that's the most important thing. And then we go to planning. That's how I feel, but that's not going to happen, right? To me, it's a win-win if both sides agree. The way we're doing them now, it's a crapshoot because I know we don't understand all the layers. I can talk to these guys and we can come to an agreement what works for Kaunulu. I get ideas where I live by Waiakoa that would work, that would help limit traffic to come back this way to go shopping at Safeway. I can stay at that side and we can do something smaller over there that keep us over there. But I'm thinking more break down the aupua and we focus in because each one different, yeah? Each one different. And then we lost the connectivity to Mauka, yeah? So those guys up there, they're not going to think the same way we think. We know that, right? And the other thing that I'm worried about is, you know, planning. I was going to say planning, you know, we can go planning director. You know, I worried about the exemptions. I worry about we put in all the time and work and things get signed off, whatever. But, you know, we're always got to be on our guard. We got to chase. And I don't like do that. It's a lot of time. The other thing is the planning commission. And maybe Mike can help me out if you get update information. So from what I hear, the Kihei no more one planning commission, one seat for a while. They get 3 up country, they get 3 at West Maui. I don't know what the other mokus get. So when this finish, who going to represent, you know, Kihei or South Maui? Those guys, Lahaina, they going to vote. They're going to gut out our manao that we put in this plan. So yeah, I trying to work on that, but we get some things inside kind of weird. That yeah, that don't make sense that we no more in rep for Kihei for our plan, and that's planning commission. So that's why a week went by that I felt like, you know, I can do this with the developer, keep everybody else out. You know, our community, we can get with the developer and we work with them, or they work with us. It should be that way. They work with us, but at least we're working with them. We get on the same page, and then we go to planning. So this is the one that inspired me, you know, for come and share. And then I'm going to send that away for have that studied, because I'm interested in how old that core head is. Mahalo.
Thank you. Just a note, right after the last meeting, you may remember that Dick Mayer, he got cut off because he didn't understand that his time was up and he had his speaker off, and so eventually we just turned off his sound, but he was kind of upset after that and wrote to me. But he also said that the Kula Community Association has officially decided that they want to work with us on stormwater mitigation. They want to come up with solutions together with us. Okay, so at this time I'm opening public testimony only on land use designations and only for those who have not spoken on that particular matter before. Okay. And how about on blue jeans? Nothing there either? No? Okay. Okay, closing testimony on the land use designations, and we'll resume where we left off last time. Daniel?
Point of order, Chair. I'd like to share 2 things. Excuse me, use the microphone, please. Sorry. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to as I have done, share the vision statement
Go ahead.
and also share what's in the charter, the Maui County Charter about this organization. If I could read that, with your permission.
How long is that?
It's a paragraph and a half. Take less than 30 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let me start with that. The charter is like the Constitution of the County of Maui. It's sort of like the operating manual, and this comes from section 8-8.5, General Plan and Community Plans. And this is paragraph 4 and part of 5. There shall be a Citizens Advisory Committee for each community plan area. Each Citizen Advisory Committee shall consist of 13 members, with 9 appointed by the council and 4 appointed by the mayor. Each Citizen Advisory Committee is charged with reviewing and recommending revisions to the community plan for its community plan area. Each Citizen Advisory Committee shall remain in existence until its revisions are adopted and modified or rejected by the council, and until such action is approved, modified, or rejected by the mayor. The community plans created and revised by the Citizen Advisory Committee shall set forth in detail land uses within the community plan regions of the county. So, quickly, synonym for detail is thorough, precise, specific. Antonym for detail is vague, general, and ambiguous. So I thought it was important that we would know what we're charged to do. Okay, the last time I said I would memorize the vision statement, which I think I have, so I'm going to say it by memory, and then after which I'm going to ask for a volunteer to memorize it, and they'll say it next week, okay? South Maui beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving with affordable housing close to good jobs and a diversity of transportation options, including safe, walkable, and bikeable paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected, celebrated, enhancing the sense of place, enhancing South Maui's sense of place. So I think memorizing this has helped me to feel more kama'aina, more ma'a to what we're trying to do. So I think it's a good exercise for others to memorize it. So is there a volunteer who'd like to memorize it and then give it next week? Someone like to raise their hand and volunteer to do it? Tova? Thank you, Tova. And when you're done, you call on somebody else, okay? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That was a nice start to this meeting. So where we left off last time was that Kyoki had made a motion to adopt the text on small town center that you see not there, but a little bit further down, right there. And it failed. I think that's something like 4-4, so there's no majority to adopt it. And so at this time, I'd like to ask those who voted against it to propose alternative text, because we need something instead. Daniel?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the language in the existing community plan under business, which is on page 55 of the Kihei McKenna Community Plan. For example, Azeka and the stores in that area are B on the map for business commercial, which is described as this includes retail stores, office, entertainment, enterprises, and related accessory uses. I would like to propose that as a replacement for that designation that didn't pass, small town center. And if there is a second, we can discuss it and perhaps amend what's in the community plan if we choose and add additional language. So that's my motion.
Second by Wayne. So again, this is business/commercial, so B.
Yes, B.
Okay. So again, this, not everyone has the Kihei McKenna Community Plan in front of them, so
How many people here have the Kihei McKenna Community Plan? 1, 2. So maybe some of us can share with our neighbors so they can look at it.
is it possible to put up on the screen? It's just one sentence.
Business commercial, yeah, B. So you see other commercial designations, which are business multifamily and business industrial. Business industrial is more like for light industrial uses. And business multifamily, this includes a mixture of retail, office, and commercial services, which are oriented to neighborhood service, single-family, and multifamily residential uses. So perhaps we could look to the language of the other commercial designations to, I would be open to modifying what's there.
So the business commercial designation in the Kihei McKenna Community Plan is much more similar to employment center in the current proposal than to small town center. And the difference is mainly in whether or not you should allow residential or not. So business commercial does not allow residential, so that's, I think, a step backwards.
I'd like to hear what others have to say.
Everett?
I agree with Rob's comment. I think we need housing. And so if we're going to stick with the existing, I would suggest business multifamily.
I just want to clarify, in the that plot of land in the 98 plan, that was under project district, is that correct? The triangle? Was that project?
We're not talking about the triangle, we're talking about the land use designation.
Oh, not for Maui?
No,
Oh, excuse
we
me.
haven't got there yet.
Sorry.
The differences between the 4 mixed-use designations are so that you can say the scale and character of what kind of mixed use you want, instead of just saying all of it's just mixed use, whatever the density is. So this is to say you want a neighborhood center, it'd be a smaller mixed use. Small town center would be taller and larger mixed use. This small town center doesn't really align with the one that it's being recommended for.
You're talking about B? Okay.
And even the other one, which is business multifamily, is more similar to, it's more like all the mixed uses together. So that's just one designation that's saying any sort of mixed use, business, multifamily. It just gives one density. Whereas with the updated plan, it's to say how dense you want the area.
Understood. The updated designation failed to pass. So we're looking for something else. And so I made that motion. I'm open to friendly amendments.
Everett?
Maybe since we have, we're closer to full force tonight, maybe we should vote on what didn't pass last week to see if it would pass this week.
We do have a motion on the floor, though, so. Further discussion? Vernon?
Yeah, so this is the one I went home thinking, and then 1 week went by. So, again, just trying to absorb all of this. So I just using like Pilani Promenade as an example. That's small town center, right? Okay. So what I understand so far is we still can build housing, I believe, but more apartment, 2-story kind, and not so this way, lateral, more up and down than not this way. So that kind of density sometimes would make more sense. If you can put housing or structures, maybe like 2-story the most, opposed to building left, right, up, down, and covering more land. So this is the one that I kind of getting second thoughts on, because I voted against this. But I failed to, the language, keeping the 35 feet in there. Because I was tired, like I was trying to stay up. But again, I go home, process, get out, process, and this is the part where I'm being challenged personally, like maybe we should have kept them small town center, but that's why we're talking about it. Yeah.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Daniel?
We had my motion up there. Why isn't it up there? I see small town center is up there. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Tova?
I too am in agreement that incorporating housing is important. So I'm not particularly in favor of B, which would exclude that.
BMF wouldn't exclude it.
So are you amending your motion?
If people want housing in it, Everett brought up that as a possible option. I would amend my motion to be, because it includes housing, to be BMF, business multifamily. This includes a mixture of retail, office, and commercial services, which are orientated to neighborhood service and single-family and multifamily residential uses. So if the second will support that.
Wayne? Further discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote here. So those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. And those voting no? Mike? And those abstaining? Okay, motion passes. So that is our new definition of small town center. Includes a mixture of retail, office, and commercial services which are oriented to neighborhood service and single-family and multifamily residential uses. Let's move
Didn't
on.
Wayne object to the amendment to the motion?
He said no objection.
No objection. Oh, he sounded really salty when he said that. Okay.
Okay, so again, we're kind of moving up the density scale here. Next one is a transit-oriented corridor. So you guys can see in the material that was sent out, and also it's in the pamphlet, that to make this a little bit easier, I identified all the areas in South Maui which the plan proposes to use for each designation. So looking at transit-oriented corridor, it proposes 3. The Ma'alaya Triangle, which I think we all discussed and we're not happy with. The Ohukai Light Industrial Area, the MRTP, and then the Wailea Gateway Center. And personally, I think it's absolutely out of the question for MRTP. But we can discuss that when we get there.
Just share something. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share that the community plan designations were not developed specific for West Maui. They were developed for all of the island of Maui. So they weren't intended to be specific for West Maui. Also, just coming from the zoning division, development standards such as heights are usually in the zoning code, not necessarily in the community plan designations. So if something is in a zoning code chapter that has a height that's different from this, then it's going to be in conflict. So development standards are all in Title 19. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
I was told that the Wailuku and Kahului plan has a limitation on the number of stories, so that it can actually have a limited number of stories in the community plan. Is that not true?
I have to look that up. I don't know.
Okay, Daniel?
It is in the Wailuku Kahului Community Plan under urban design. It talks about stories, how many stories a hotel can have. It talks about 10 stories. And there are other places in the urban design or urban standards, section of that community plan that talks about stories, how many stories it should be. So I don't know. I know it's in the Wailuku Kahului community plan, so it's there. So it can be put in. It can be put in community plans. At least the current community plans have them.
So do we have a motion on the text? Transit-oriented corridor. So we're not assigning this to any areas right now. We're just deciding on it as a category. Everett,
I move to accept the proposed language.
is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion. And again, as we discussed last time, it won't say permitted uses. It'll have to say appropriate uses. It's okay, Everett? Yeah. Okay.
You guys last time were switching between allowed uses and appropriate uses, so you want it to be appropriate uses?
I think we decided that on appropriate uses throughout.
All right.
Daniel?
When I first saw this designation, I had trouble with the use of the word corridor because, corridor in my mind is sort of a linear area that has multimodal uses, like you find along a road. bikeways, besides, driving cars, walking paths, busing routes. Be nice if we had light rail. But that's why I think of a corridor. This is more of a, as it says, an area. It's describing an area. I may be fine with corridor as just as long as it's closely connected to a transit corridor, and just not some sort of area somewhere. So I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that. I know it. Okay, sorry.
Mike?
I had the same thought that Daniel did when I read that. Corridor to me was a pathway, it's a hallway. So how did that fit? But I was when I questioned another designation title, the suggestion was made that the title doesn't mean that much. Look at the content. So that's what I'm trying to do, is look at the content. But I thought, like Daniel, this doesn't sound like the right term to me, corridor. So I can see where he's getting that from. But that's how I'm trying to look at it. What was suggested, look at the description, the content, rather than the title, for what that's worth.
So I have lived in California and seen the rise of these transit-oriented corridors, which I thought was a very positive thing, because before that, everyone had to drive a long way to get to work. But then they started building new communities with rapid transit, and people could live there and they could shop there, and they didn't have to get in their car to do a lot of things. And there it was definitely. It was oriented towards transit. In other words, it was along. They planned a railway or something there. So, in that sense, it doesn't really sound that much like Maui. But in terms of its placement in this series of categories here, this is the highest density where you can have businesses and housing. That's kind of higher than small town center, higher than neighborhood center. So it's kind of, you have that hierarchy there. So it could be named something else, but I think we need a category for, maybe not even in South Maui. Maybe it'll just be Kahului, but we need someplace. We need a place where we can have big buildings and a bunch of things which we don't want in a small town. Daniel?
So, Chair, not being familiar with those areas on the mainland that you're familiar with, the corridor transportation, is it called transient-oriented corridor? Transient-oriented. So it sounds like it is within short walking distance to trains and what have you, right? So these corridors should be within very short walking distance to bus systems, bikeways, and I think that should be spelled out clearly in the language. If they're going to go by that name, it needs to be spelled out very clearly. So it is actually a corridor. It is functioning as a place where people can do things and get to and from. It will provide an efficient way to get around. Efficient means being able to get around quickly in a predictable manner. So that this has to provide that if it's going to go by this particular name. So could we include some language that states that this area is within close proximity to some multimodal modes of transportation? Any suggestions?
Everett and then Tova.
I think we might be covered by the second sentence. Within this designation, residential uses, retail, and other businesses serving local and regional markets mixed to create a pedestrian-friendly activity centers and multimodal corridors with vibrant street life.
Tova?
I agree that that's going in the right direction, but as a friendly amendment, I'd suggest we look at the testimony submitted by Albert, where it just calls it out a little bit more specifically. It specifies, it's a lot of the same language in the level of detail, which Daniel pointed out is what we're trying to do here, is get very specific, but it drills down a little bit more that the areas within 1/4 mile of transit facilities is what we're looking at, and changes a should to a must be walking distance. Must be designed to provide the majority of services residents would need.
So Tova, could you read it? Could you read it with that in there? How would it sound?
Karen, do we have the ability to pull that up, or? No, okay. The transit-oriented corridor community plan designation is intended to create transit-friendly areas within 1/4 mile of transit facilities that are or are planned to be characterized by a mix of higher density commercial, employment, light industrial, and residential uses. Within this designation, residential uses in retail and other businesses serving local or regional markets mix to create pedestrian-friendly activity centers and multimodal corridors with vibrant street life. Housing types in this designation include a mix of medium to high density development. Preferred design and elements include buildings fronting property lines, pedestrian, bicycle, and transit facilities, public-private amenities, and civic spaces and parks. Developments within transit-oriented corridor designations must be designed to provide the majority of the services residents would need on a daily basis within walking distance. Development must follow the scale and character of the surrounding area until design standards are established by the council. So you can see it's just a little bit more clarifying the point that you were bringing up, Daniel.
Yeah, I think that does get kind of like what I was shooting for. It's more specific, 1/4 mile, 100 yards. But yeah, I like that language. Is there a motion already?
There's a motion and a second.
Can I propose a friendly amendment?
Yes, with a tweak. My tweak is instead of 1/4 mile, because 1/4 mile for Maui bus service, it just isn't going to happen. So I think if we were to say 3/4 mile, which is still a reasonable walking distance, then that's okay.
Three-quarters of a mile is not a reasonable walking distance. Maybe for somebody who is healthy and fit, but for someone that walking is difficult, 3/4 of a mile is a long walk. And I know people like that. I know people that are handicapped and are 3/4 of a mile from a bus stop and cannot make that bus stop. It's too far.
How about a compromise, 1/2 mile?
Wayne is waiting for the word.
Mr. Chairman, the words you people are saying paint a nice picture. You identified 3 transit-oriented corridor in our plan. Where are these corridors located, and what is the total size of the corridors in acres?
That comes later, where we apply them to. As a matter of fact, right after this, we'll be talking about Ma'alaya, whether or not that applies there. It may apply nowhere. There may be nowhere in South Maui that this applies to. It's possible, because we're talking about the designations now, not particular plots of land. So we had a friendly amendment. We had a suggestion for friendly amendment. Did you agree with the 1/2 mile?
How about 1,000 feet? That's a good distance, 1,000 feet.
Just, you guys are the ones that are going to be making the map, so you can look at the map and be like, is that within 1/4 mile? Is that within 1,000 feet? And we can measure that on the map. But to put it in here, it's not going to affect the plan.
So you're saying it really doesn't matter if it's 1,000 feet or a half mile or?
You guys can look at it when you get to the maps and determine that for South Maui. You are the ones who are looking at the maps and making those maps.
Yeah, right, I'm fine with a half mile.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
And Brian? Okay. So I think there are, so he's ignoring the 45-foot height limit. And I think that's part of your proposal, right? Because that was in the text, yeah. So the proposal then, the amendment then is to add within a half mile of transit facilities. And then he also says must be designed to provide. Okay, so, and Brian? Okay. So those two changes to the what's on the screen. Yes, that's it. No?
I didn't want to delete the height.
Wanted to?
I did not want to delete the height.
No, the height stays. Yeah, no one proposed removing the height. Okay. Further discussion? Any objections? Wayne objects? Okay, hold the vote. Those in favor of the definition of transit-oriented corridor on the screen, please raise your hand. And those opposed? Any abstentions? Or none? Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, motion passes. The next definition is resort hotel. At least it's shorter. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve as drafted.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion. Daniel?
Kalamai. At the very end of the text, it says, the last sentence, public beach access must be provided as required by law and will not be discouraged. I don't understand why and will not be discouraged is in there if it's required by law. Are they discouraging things that are required by law? I just don't think it's necessary.
I'm fine with putting a period after required by law.
Oh, is that your motion, Everett? Yeah. Oh, okay. And it was who seconded it?
Jennifer.
Oh, sorry. I had my head buried in papers, so. Okay, thank you. And then the first sentence, the resort hotel community plan designation is intended to provide for existing and future visitor-oriented development in appropriate areas. So I think a lot of folks feel in the community that we are experiencing over-tourism. Way over-tourism. So do we want to encourage future visitor-oriented development.
So have Kilke first, and then Everett.
I'm just reading over again the testimony by Albert, and in that first part, I think it makes sense. He had that portion scratched out, existing and future. So provide for visitor-oriented development in appropriate areas. Kind of goes in the line of what you omitted in the last sentence too, yeah, Daniel? As far as it not really being appropriate. What do you think?
Yes. I don't know. I think that sentence is fine as it is without that existing and future. Is that a? Well, okay.
So Everett.
The reason I like this is it says in appropriate areas, and I think there are areas that are designed for this, and there are areas that are not designed for this. And I think the bed and breakfast scattered through residential neighborhoods, occupying residences that could be for long-term local residents. I have an issue with that, and that's why I like this in appropriate areas. And I interpret that as being areas with the proper infrastructure to support resort and hotels, as opposed to the visitors being spread out through our neighborhoods.
I think the proposal is, I think they're suggesting to follow Albert's proposal, which is keep the appropriate areas, but strike existing and future.
I understand that. I was just communicating why I like inappropriate areas in this.
I like in appropriate areas too.
Tova?
I'm wondering why, I see why we would cross out transient accommodations, per your point, Everett, but I'm confused why we're removing retail, commercial uses, and other visitor amenities. If the thinking is there's some logic to coordinating the visitor-oriented amenities together. Was there a reason we pulled that out?
Yes, as you can see there at the bottom. So instead of having them spread out among the text, they're called out explicitly. So it's a guidance to the planning department. We did that in all the sections. Wayne?
For planning, what are the areas in Key, McKenna, Malaya that we identified for resort hotel?
Primarily, it's existing hotels. There is a small parcel in Wailea that is designated for resort hotel. And I think that's the only one that's designated other than existing hotels.
How many acres?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry.
They're on this page. There's a page that says hotel resort that shows all the ones that are in the draft plan are hotel resort. So I'm confused, Everett. What is the motion at this point? I mean, just the first sentence.
That's it. All we're doing is just accepted Daniel's friendly amendment, existing and future to be struck, and that's it.
Okay, got it. Okay. Further discussion? Any objections? Wayne objects. Let's have a vote. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Everybody except Wayne.
Okay, and those against?
Everybody was.
And any objection? I'm sorry, any abstentions? Okay. Next one is employment center. So my interpretation is this is like kind of like the business commercial. This is not for residential. This is just commercial. Daniel?
Business incubators. I think I know what that is, but I know what baby incubators are. But I'm not sure I know what business incubators are. Maybe planning can help me or someone.
Like areas that are less expensive so small businesses can start there. Kind of like incubating a baby, keeping it going while it's growing.
It's also typically access to like shared facilities and resources. So like a community kitchen could be a business incubator for people that are starting like a food-based business, something like that.
It's like a startup that needs a little help and can get help in an area like this place, like this designation. Says, okay, I think I get it.
Sounds kind of like the MRTP, but except that it's not, but it sounds like it. Cody? Yeah. We don't have a motion yet, yes, so we need a motion on this. Jennifer makes the motion. Second by Everett. Cody, did you have a comment on this? No? Okay. Any objections to adopting the text as drafted? Okay, fine, we have adopted the employment center definition. On to industrial. Cody?
Is there a possibility to change my vote on the resort designation?
I don't know, can you do that? Change your vote after the fact?
It won't affect whether or not it passes.
Yeah, but still, yeah.
Okay, research is in progress. I'll let you know.
You can make a motion to reopen it, and then Cody can vote against it.
Okay, seems like people are okay with that. So someone makes a so Cody makes a motion to reopen it.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so again, this is Resort Hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and we just
We
want
did have a motion on the floor for EC first, though. Can you guys
okay.
pass that one
Okay,
and then
yeah.
reopen the other one?
EC was all in favor.
Yeah, EC was adopted.
They just adopted it. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so Resort Hotel, same motion. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Resort Hotel. Oh, second for the motion to open it, reopen it, yes.
Second.
Second by Everett, okay. Now, those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against? No abstentions.
Are we voting on the motion to reopen?
No, we already did that.
This is what we're voting on right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, employment centers done. So next is industrial, even shorter. So again, throughout, it's not permitted, it's appropriate uses.
I move that we approve it, the definition.
Yeah, and Jennifer seconds. Okay. Industrial. Discussion. Yeah, actually, I think there's no industrial areas defined in South Maui. That's why there's no map that shows them. Oh, there's one. Yes, okay, here we are. Okay. So we have, the cement factory, Central Base Yard, Mauka, the Raceway Center, and then the quarry just south of the wastewater recycling facility. Those are proposed as industrial. Tova?
So that means we don't have a light industrial designation? In referring to Albert's language here, it looks like...
That's employment center.
Oh, that's called employment center. Right. I remember that now. Okay.
So did we have a motion there? Yes, okay, we had a motion, okay. Discussion?
Chair,
Yeah,
I quite didn't catch the exchange between Tova and Everett. I missed it. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
I was asking for clarification about light industrial versus industrial because that was the old language, but I'd forgotten that it was converted because we have the suggestion in testimony to keep it separated out in that way. But light industrial is nested in commercial now. That's the languaging. And industrial just refers to the heavy. So just making sure we have a designation that separates the two because they are quite different.
Okay.
Any objections? This definition of industrial? Okay, fine, we've adopted that. Special purpose district.
I move that we approve as drafted.
Okay, again, just remembering that it'll say appropriate uses rather than permitted uses. Yeah. So Brian seconded, okay. Discussion?
It shouldn't actually say establish project districts that do not fall easily within one of the other ones. It should say other uses that do not fall, that are incompatible.
Okay.
I'm guessing the reason for that is just grandfathering in existing project districts, but maybe we don't want to do that.
That's exactly what we want to avoid. It's a confusing way of designating land.
So could you formulate that again or correct on the screen? Thank you. Daniel?
Oh, no, that's what I was going to ask about, the established, so we were eliminating that? From the planning department is eliminating that?
Everett accepted the suggestion.
Oh, Everett.
Yeah.
That was, this is an amendment then.
Yes.
Everett's good with that. Okay.
Discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted the special purpose district. And next we have public, quasi-public.
Chair, I kind of think this as a quasi-modal land use designation in the plan.
Wrong movie. Do we have a motion for this one?
And the acceptable uses on this one are kind of mixed into the paragraph when all the other ones are broken out. Is there a reason for that?
My fault.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve everything up until that, after uses, put a period, and then move all of the specific uses under appropriate, did we agree on appropriate uses?
Second by Jennifer. Discussion. Any objections? Okay, fine, we adopted the public, quasi-public definition. Next one is park. Daniel?
I'd like to make a motion to accept park, the park community plan designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for recreational activities. And I would like to remove golf courses as one of the appropriate uses. That's my motion.
Second by Wayne.
My question would be, what do you want to put golf courses under then? Should those be under a more intense use, like neighborhood center?
Oh, I
or
see. You're including existing golf courses under parks. Understood. Okay, my intention for not wanting to include golf courses, and maybe I'm not doing it correctly, because I don't think we need any more golf courses in South Maui. I think we have enough golf courses. So if it's not the correct place to communicate that in the community plan, then maybe someone can correct me.
The correct place would be in policies. Discourage the development of additional golf courses.
Okay. So we just want a designation that says golf courses, existing golf courses, need to go somewhere. And we've picked parks because they're recreational. Is that why?
Because it's green space that is recreational.
It's just a placeholder, right? It's just a designation to put it.
I think they do need to go somewhere. I mean, they don't belong in an industrial or small town center or transit-oriented corridor.
Okay, well, I'm amending my motion to include golf courses. I have a better understanding of why it's included there, so I amend my motion.
Second?
Second by Everett.
Actually, I had Wayne say, wait. Yeah.
Oh, Wayne already seconded it. Okay. Sorry.
What?
Okay, so we had, I think, Verna?
This include like the beach parks.
Yes.
Um,
Oh. Oh, okay, so Everett seconds. Okay.
This include the beach parks, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, there's a, the page that says park at the top, it shows, and it kind of shows the green, the beach parks.
So, can we put language in there that to exclude all commercial activities in parks?
That would be a policy.
Would that be policy?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it happens.
Daniel?
I'd like to add to appropriate uses, camping areas. It's in our policies in action to have camping areas.
I think it was actually in the McKenna community plan too, as in that
Where should we
context.
put camping areas? I envision a camping area somewhere in the next 10 years or less, if not in my backyard. But yeah, I see that happening.
You just need a second for your friendly amendment.
Yeah. Everett's okay with that. Okay. Discussion.
Can we include passive parks? I don't think we have a passive park in South Maui. We have active parks, but no passive parks.
Would a passive park be considered a green belt? Or would that be captured under open space, the next? No? Okay.
You have active parks and passive parks. Can put both in. Active parks and passive parks in the language.
Open space is proposed to have green belts and greenways. Okay, we want a definition of passive park.
It's like a wilderness park. You know, that has trails in it. That's how I understand passive parks.
Is that, I think that's covered under open space, the next
Is it?
destination.
Okay, let's look. I don't see it there.
There's open space, green belts, greenways.
Walking, hiking, running.
I think it's. I think you got to call out a passive park. This is a passive park.
Tova?
I guess my question on the, is it open space or not, is that the places that are designated open space are not public access, whereas a passive park is explicitly public access. So to me, that feels like a difference. You can't just go walk those areas that are green. And you're talking about areas like that you can actually legally access, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like on county property, you know, that can be used as a passive park, but it is not developed like a park. It's natural. It's left in its natural state. But then you have walking trails. You may have tables where you can sit down and enjoy the view, things like that.
Okay.
Okay, so adding passive parks to the uses for park. Mike?
Yeah, I would just offer that many, many times the county-owned land in the area of the police station has been mentioned as a potential passive park. And I can envision that being what Daniel is looking for. So just if that adds any clarity to the matter. Thank you.
Brian?
So since most of us didn't understand what a passive park is, should we not define at least an interpretation or a description in there so that someone can't take a different opinion on what a passive park is? So kind of, Daniel, what you were saying about that it's walking trails, natural development, not reconstructed, something. Right, and what Toby said. So I just think that putting that either as a definition or including the kind of explanation, I think would be important, because I didn't understand the difference of a passive park. So.
So the county lot next to the police station is proposed as open space in the current plan, and I think the thinking either. So my understanding of passive park is it's one that's not maintained it's not groomed and maintained. It's just something. Take it as it is. You can walk and hike and run there, but it's not going to be, it's not going to have all the facilities of a managed park, that as an active park basically. But and typically I think you would want that in open space rather than. That's the difference. But we added it here as a passive park. So do we need a definition? The person who made the motion.
Can you repeat that?
Do we need a definition of passive park?
I'm fine without a definition.
Who was the second on that? I forget. Everett. Okay.
Everett was the second.
Okay. Okay. So amendment is not accepted. Further discussion. Cody and Tova.
Maybe a tiny friendly amendment could be passively managed park. That just helps with a little bit of clarification, but doesn't derail your sense of wording.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Passively managed.
Passively managed parks. And then Cody.
I'd like to make an amendment to propose that, or motion, sorry, to go back to industrial.
But we got to finish this one first, then we'll go back to industrial. Then.
Sorry.
Yeah. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, I find we've adopted park with those amendments. Okay, so Cody makes a motion to reopen industrial. Is there a second? Second by Daniel? Okay. Go ahead, Cody.
So, I mean, I was just kind of looking through, again, through Maui Tomorrow's testimony, and I would like further clarification on what industrial is. Is it possible to have two designations, light industrial and industrial? Reason being so that light industrial, according to the testimony, can have more opportunities for thriving small industrial businesses like warehousing, light assembly, service, craft type operations.
So that's included in employment center, in what we just adopted. It's called out there.
Okay, so
Yeah,
no.
it's kind of they're different terms, different technology, different categorizations. So Albert's proposal has some of the ones that we're using and some of the ones that we're not using and some new ones. So they don't entirely, they cover the same, in totality they cover the same area, but there are different ones for different purposes. So we adopt the employment center that covers exactly that. Daniel?
Just looking at Albert's testimony, he seemed to be concerned that light industrial would be competed out of spaces with higher uses, and I think his feeling was they should have their own space where they're not competing with people that can pay more rent, for example, than maybe light industrial uses can. So I think that's why the testimony is to provide a separate area just for light industrial and not combine it with other industrial uses.
Okay, Cody?
Yeah, I concur with that, and also because employment centers can be pretty broad and vague, and light industrial kind of pertains to specific light industrial needs.
The zoning code already has these separated out and what's allowed in those two different, we got M1, M2, and M3, light industrial, heavy industrial, and then I think it's like special industrial. So that's already in the zoning code to have those and what's allowed and what's not. Thank you.
Daniel?
Yeah, what would be an example of an area like that where it's separated and then there's one specific area? Was it M1? Is M1 light industrial? M3 is more heavy. Yeah, so where would be an example where you have all those three things happening in the same area, but they're separated? So that light industrial has their own, maybe a block or a street.
I'd have to look at the zoning maps, but like the Central Maui Base Yard would be where you'd see a lot of the heavy industrial use. But some of the zoning chapters allow, they call it stacked use, where the lower one is allowed in the higher one. But I would have to check the chapters and see if M1 uses are allowed in M2. Some other ones would be like, where the pineapple canner used to be in Kahului, that would be M2. And then there might be some M1 uses nearby around there, but I'd have to check the zoning map.
So if you look at the current zoning map, Central Base Yard is partly M1, light industrial, partly M2, heavy industrial. And then the area that's being developed right now in the back of the raceway is M3, heavy industrial. So there are examples of use of M1, M2, M3.
I wish Robert Stoner were here so I could ask him about how M1 is doing in his base yard, if it's thriving, because he did mention that he was getting a lot of calls to lease spaces, but he has no space to lease. And I wonder how many of those calls are coming from guys who need light industrial.
From my experience in the zoning division, there's high demand for industrial space. These newer areas, I think what you're referring to is that newer area behind the Central Maui Base Yard, that sold out quickly, and there's a need for more.
Okay, so are we good with industrial? Okay. See, where are we at? Daniel?
Chair, should we take a break? It's like 7 o'clock. Oh, yeah, I mean, we'll finish this and I thought we had finished.
There's no proposal for, there's no motion. Yes.
Well, I wanted to make a motion for light industrial designation and an industrial one.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? Tova?
An implementation question. While I like the idea behind it, that designating is helpful, I guess the process question is, if we are dividing our land uses into smaller and smaller pieces, would it work the other way around, where we end up not creating any space, whereas having it as this broader commercial area means you could pursue that within that area? Or is that neither here nor there? Question for planning.
That would be accurate. The intention of like the mixed use designations is to allow small commercial within the residential, and the economic center is to have light industrial with the option of live work units. It's not to have housing replace the industrial, it's to allow appropriate uses near residential areas.
So just to clarify, this, by separating it out, it could work against the overall vision and intention?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
So we need the content of this category.
So the light industrial would be for warehousing, light assembly, service, and craft type industrial operations.
So you'd like me to take all the permitted uses out of employment center and just call it light industrial?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm.
Just on the implementation side of that, if we have community plans that everything's different in them, it's not going to be easy to implement. And not everything's about being easy, but if everything is hard, it's less likely to be implemented well. So having something that's called light industrial instead of employment center is just going to have the planner being like, oh, I need to look up this stuff.
Daniel?
Sorry, maybe I'm confused, but I understood that we're going back to industrial, and then that we were separating light industrial and industrial. That was my understanding. I didn't think that we were looking at employment center designation.
Employment center is light industrial. This includes M1 and M2. That is what the designation is for.
The proposal is to create another designation which overlaps with employment center.
So I'm not a planner, you know. I mean, and Vernon definitely brought it up earlier, you know, about we just trying to do what we feel is best for our area, and what I'm looking at is something that is broad here, employment center. But what I'm trying to say is that we want our light industrial jobs to thrive while not getting overpowered by our industrial. So that's why I'm trying to create or proposing to Kako'o the Maui Tomorrow's testimony on this. So it's, you know, not everybody needs to agree, but that's how I feel, and so I'm just putting it out there like that.
So I think what he's proposing is to create a new category called light industrial that includes the first bullet under employment center, and only that. Is that what you guys are thinking, Cody and Daniel? Okay. Discussion? Any objections? Everett? Oh, just objecting. Okay, you're asking for a vote. Okay. Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. Is creating this new category. And those opposed? And those abstaining? I guess that's just me.
6 yeses, is that right? And 4, 2, 3, 4. I didn't, what did you vote? 5 noes. 6 yeses and 5 noes. Who-
I counted 6 yeses and 5 noes, so that would mean Rob needs to vote.
This is the first time I'm having to vote in this whole process. We've gone 5 months or more without me having to vote. I'll vote no. So motion fails. Okay, so we have a couple of designations left, but we'll take a 10-minute break. So back at 7:11. Okay, resuming the meeting at 7:11 p.m. So we are at open space. Does everyone see the open space designation proposal? There we go.
I move that we should approve this with the addition of wetlands included in number 3.
Is there a second? Second by Tova. Okay. So adding wetlands to item 3. Moved by Everett, second by Tova. Daniel?
I'd like to add dark skies to item 3, right after scenic resources.
Accepted by Everett. Tova, you okay with that?
Clarifying question for you, Daniel. Love dark skies. How can you have it as a land use designation?
You can have scenic resources as a land use designation, a view plane.
You might just have to unpack that a tiny bit more for me to follow how you could have dark skies as a land use designation.
Cody?
No, it's an, oh, I see. I see what you're saying. That's really funny when I think of it. Yeah. I thought I knew where I was going, but then I got into dark skies and I got lost.
Cody?
Yeah, is there a way to put like Mulivai instead of drainage way? Or add Mulivai?
Okay with Everett. Okay with Tova? Yep. Mulliwai. Mulivai. Brian?
I believe we had some testimony when we were looking at the gulches to kind of say that the maps that are currently kind of being utilized aren't 100% accurate. And if I recall, we put it in one of the definitions that it was approximately. and would be defined at the project time? And would that not potentially be applicable for this as well?
I'm not following. What are you proposing?
Anybody else remember? Because I'm going back 2 weeks after a long week of drinking. Just being honest, I was in Mexico. But when we were talking about, I think David Good had mentioned in their discussions that he was showing where he said there was gulches, but they weren't really complete gulches, and it's because somebody drew them on a map, and the map wasn't 100% accurate. I'm just asking if that was applicable. I would think it would be applicable here as well, because is everything defined 100%? And is it because somebody drew it on a map and their plan is using that map? I guess I'm more asking a question.
So I think what we're saying here is what we want to be open space. So I mean, and so we're saying that, and what purposes it should serve. So among the purposes it's proposing is protection of ecological resources, including things like gulches. So it's not saying where there are gulches, it's saying that one of the purposes, unlike, for example, industrial or small town center or these other things, open space is a place where you have gulches.
Right, but if the maps that we're looking at are inaccurate, if the planners are looking at a map that says, oh, somebody says this is a gulch, but it's not really a gulch because it doesn't exist. Tova can say something.
I'm just kind of circling back to what Rob said. This is about definitions for land use designation. So while I hear you, when it comes to mapping, that's probably something that needs to get looked at. I mean, I think here we're just defining open space.
In other words, if a gulch doesn't belong in open space, where does it belong? I mean, it doesn't belong in industrial, small town center, residential, right?
But I guess I'm just confused on then, and apologies for not being here last week and maybe it was defined. How does then a map get created accurately so that it is defined properly? Because we can write in what we want this to say, but if it's not actually defined, this is a gulch or it's not a gulch, then if it's on a map that is just kind of out there, I'm assuming planning is going to use the map and say, or a planner is going to look at a map and go, there's a gulch.
We are going to start defining plans as soon as we finish defining the designations for them.
So there's two things. First of all, the gulches were defined first by looking at them and seeing that there was indentations in the land, and then comparing that to an elevation. I can't remember the name of that kind of map right now.
Topography?
Yeah, topography map. And topographical, there we go. I got 3 different ones. And the second thing is that would be a policy if you were going to include it. It shouldn't be a part of the definition.
Okay. Thank you. That's where I was going to go. We'll go policy then.
Okay, Daniel?
Okay, I'm just, when I talked about dark skies, as it relates to Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices, dark skies are important to certain Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices. Dark skies can be considered, I think, a sensitive ecological resource because there are certain life cycles of flora, fauna, marine animals, birds that depend on dark skies for their life cycles. Certain cultural practices require being able to see things clearly at night, seeing certain constellations, certain moon phases, being able to see the night sky, being able to see the aqua shadow that relates to things that are on Earth. Things are planned based upon the moon phases, based upon the aqua shadow. So that's what I was referring when I was seeing dark skies as something that should be protected and open spaces and not taken for granted. So maybe it's not so silly after all to put it in there.
I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's, if not preserved in open spaces, where will it be preserved? And that's
Yeah.
open spaces where you would go to be able to see the see the night sky. So I think it does belong there.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a friendly amendment to include dark skies.
Was it accepted? It was accepted. Okay, Vernon.
What Daniel is referring to, a good example is the Pilani Promenade site. So that entire site, without all the buildings, if we go back even 60s, even early 70s. So on that site alone, there's tons of astrological features, pohakus. We have that on my property right below this Pilani Promenade. So in effect, in how you use and navigate with those pohakus during certain times, you need dark skies, to see it, to understand it, to practice it. And that's not the case today because of what the development nearby, the housing across the Pilani Promenade site, across Pilani Highway, so a lot of lighting. And so some of those practices are not available because of projects development. So this is what Daniel is asking for, whatever we have left in open space.
Further discussion? Cody?
I'd like to add two more, Punawai and Kahawai. Puna.
Springs.
Yeah. Kahawai. Thank you. Yeah.
Shorelines. Everett's okay with that? Who's the second again? Oh, Daniel made the motion and Everett second, okay. Everett made the motion. Who second? Tova, okay. Okay. Yeah. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted open space. Next one is agriculture. Daniel?
I just want to know what a lifestyle estate type subdivision is. What would be an example of that?
I think they're more in other parts of the island, like Launiopoko, Waihe'e has an area like that.
Yeah, okay. So it's saying lifestyle estate subdivisions with lots that are not used for active agriculture production are prohibited. So is the reverse true then? Is lifestyle estate type subdivisions with lots that are used for active agriculture production allowed, like Laniopoko?
Because they already exist.
But that's an allowed use, right? Laniopoko is an example of that.
Theoretically.
Isn't that ag land up there?
It's ag land.
So ag land is being used for ag purposes?
Yes, we'll say that. Laniopoko has more recently been used more for agriculture purposes. but it was developed as, and it was not an active agriculture. And that's just fact. That's not what the intention of it was.
Yeah, I mean, if Laniopoko is an example of a lifestyle estate subdivision that would be allowed in ag land, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that in South Maui.
Maybe
But
this
this says it's prohibited.
Yeah, but maybe this could be simplified just to remove that first part of it. To say lots that are not used for active agricultural production are prohibited, because that's really the intent anyway.
I'm sorry.
So maybe it can be just simplified by removing the lifestyle estate type part section. So it just says lots that are not used for active agricultural production are prohibited. I mean, that's the intent anyway.
If there's some lots that are going to be large agriculture lots that are not currently in active agriculture, that would still be designated agriculture, because that is what their intention is.
I don't see how that's modified by having the lifestyle estate type subdivisions there, though. That has nothing to do with the intent to do agriculture. They're two separate issues. They're really two separate issues. Go ahead, Karika.
Lifestyle estate type subdivision is the creative distinction that I think we're calling out and recommending that it should be prohibited. I think if you just delete lifestyle estate type subdivision and have agriculture, that's where the creativity can kind of come into some of these continued uses and practices. So if what you're saying is a preference for a particular type of prohibition, the lifestyle estate type subdivision, having that in there as a prohibited type of use is appropriate.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the opposite would be allowed then. If you have a lifestyle estate and it's used for active agriculture, then it's okay. But here, if you have a lifestyle subdivision that's not used for agriculture, that's prohibited. So the reverse would be allowed then. That's how I'm reading it. Maybe someone else would read it the same way, and they would build a lifestyle estate subdivision with ag practices.
I think they're two opposite things. I mean, some people buy up this land and want to have a nice mansion there, and some people want to farm. Those are two opposite things, and I don't think you can kind of combine them and say, yes, this is lifestyle estate type, but we're also farmers. That doesn't make sense. So I think there's two separate things. And I think you should just remove the lifestyle estate type thing altogether. The point is, do we want agriculture in agricultural areas or not? What are the permitted uses or appropriate uses? Appropriate use is not lifestyle estate type subdivisions. Appropriate uses are agriculture. And yes, okay, you may have an intent to do agriculture. That means it might take you a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, but that's different from being a lifestyle estate type subdivision. Atova?
So just to be clear, you're advocating for taking out lifestyle estate subdivision in the language?
Yes, just taking out those words.
I am familiar with these being called gentleman estates, and perhaps this is the more general, neutral way to approach that, but it has been a huge problem in Maui. So personally, I think being explicit that we are not asking for people to sell $1,000 worth of mangoes to their neighbor to show that they're meeting the ag requirements. I think calling it out is good because it's stating the intent. We want real ag. I just find the wording a little funny, but that's good. because that's not how we usually use it.
Cody?
Is there a way to fit in agroforestry in here? Like maybe in the permitted uses? I think that's really important.
I don't see why not. You can make that. So do we actually have a motion? We don't have a motion yet, do we? No. Okay, so we need a motion in order to be able to make amendments.
I move that we approve this language with Cody's suggestion.
Second by Brian. Okay. Okay, so I don't see how having lifestyle estate type subdivisions in there helps the cause, because if you're saying that all they have to do is sell a few thousand pounds of mangoes, then they're doing active agriculture productions, then they're okay. That's what it says.
I read it differently. I read it as saying our intention is not to open the door to gentlemen farmers. The intention is farming in ag land.
But here it says it's okay to do that if they have active agriculture production. I think it'd be better to just say we can't have it. We're not allowing it there in an agriculturally zoned area.
But I think at that point you're just making the distinction that you can't farm and have a nice house. If your life has landed you in a position where you can really farm and live in a nice house, and I'm okay with that if that's where you've landed in life.
But if
as long as you're farming.
It doesn't say anything about you can't have it. If you remove that, it doesn't say anywhere that you can't have a nice house. It just says that you have to have active agriculture production.
But it also says at that point, you can have ag lots that aren't being actively used in ag. I mean, there's a lot of ag property that's Class C ag property that you can't really grow anything on, but it's a lot.
So you can have mansions that are not used for that are used for active agriculture production. And okay, so you could have. So you're saying that these permitted uses would not cover the use of all those types of activities.
I'm saying if you take lifestyle estate type subdivisions out, and then you're left with lots that are not used for active agricultural production are prohibited. Well, there are a lot of ag parcels that are not used for active production. I mean, thousands of acres of property in South Maui that's ag zoned and it's not used for active production.
So, Wayne?
That's a loophole. Toba said, up country, there were 2-acre gentleman estates. Developers got away from not having to develop sidewalks and gutters because they saved money in their development. And that's what we were concerned about years ago. Gentlemen estates. People from abroad were buying large acres, creating their own mansions, thereby eliminating the ability of locals like us to live on Maui. We need to develop strong language that discourages gentlemen estates. Mr. Chairman.
Everett?
I mean, we outlined the permitted uses, and there are two sides to the coin of this sentence. If we take lifestyle estate type subdivisions with, delete that part, then we're basically saying Class C ag lands lots are prohibited. If we, so I think we should just delete that sentence. We've outlined what is permitted.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Wayne?
all you gotta do is plant a mango tree in a piece of 2-acre parcel. That way you consider ag. It's an ag. You gotta plant one mango tree.
Everett?
I think,
It's a loophole.
I think for, Karen, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think to do an ag subdivision, you have to have a farm plan. I think that's a requirement of the subdivision process. So I don't think just planning, I think it has to be a real farm. I mean, I think you have to submit a plan and the county reviews it or Department of Ag reviews it in order to do an ag subdivision. So I think if we just delete that sentence, we should be okay.
Karen? Oh, Jackie?
So once again, we're dipping into zoning code. Title 19, Chapter 1930A allows a farm dwelling and a second farm dwelling. There's no limit on the size of the first farm dwelling. There's only a limit on the second farm dwelling, which is limited currently to 1,000 square feet. So we can't dictate, like Tova said, you know, that you cannot build a house of a dwelling of a certain size on that lot. I mean, there are other restrictions like, you know, 10% of the developable area, that's in the zoning code, and setbacks, that's in the zoning code. And also the, you know, the uses are all listed in the zoning code. So, and also I am aware that, you know, the ag lots are supposed to be used for ag, and so that could be a notice of warning or a notice of violation of Title 19, and that's where that belongs, in Title 19, the zoning code. All these things. Thank you.
So how do these estates get away with it now? I mean, what should we be putting into here to make it impossible in the future?
So I think if these are places like Laniuapoco, it was going after the vacation rentals that weren't permitted. Also, like was mentioned, you know, requiring farm plans for when they want to do any other type of building on the property. I'm not directly involved in all of that, but I know that there have been steps to try to get them to do agricultural production. I'm not sure if Karen has any more to add because she was part of West Maui CPAC. I had one more thing. And then a lot of times when there's the second building permit or beyond that, we do site inspections. The zoning inspectors do go out to see, and they look at the farm plan. Is the land primarily being used for ag? So the inspectors do go out and check that. But then once again, that's zoning code. So.
But I think Wayne is right, though. I mean, we do have this problem, and Tova has pointed that out too. We do have large estates which have token growing something just to pass, and the question is, how can they get away with that? What can we do to prevent that?
The community plan can't do much to prevent that. That's why this sentence is in there, just to say discourage this when you're looking at them. But the zoning is doing what they can, and there's other movement in the county to prevent that from happening in the future, because there is a recognition that this has been a problem in the past. This is just saying don't continue it. And you can't control what size of the house somebody's allowed to build, because that's allowed. You can't say that's a state law that has nothing to do with Maui County saying how big a single family home is.
So the text as it is, that sentence would help to provide direction. Okay, so who made the motion? Everett. And Brian second. Okay, so what's your current position on this, since you're the one who made the motion?
I think we should, I see both sides of the coin on that last sentence, and I think it's less confusing to take the last sentence out. If Brian agrees. Okay, in that case, I'll leave my motion as is, that we approve what we have there with Cody's addition.
Okay. Any discussion? Any objections?
Yeah, Brian second.
Brian second.
Mr. Chairman, by Everett making that motion, he then legitimatizes gentleman estates from being built. That's the gist of his motion. And I don't like it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Those in favor of the motion with the addition of agroforestry, please raise your hand. And those against? And no abstentions. Okay. It passes. State conservation. So I just want to get clarification from planning department. If the county is not involved in permitting for state land anyway, then we don't need that part below there.
So when someone wants to do something on state conservation land, they go to the state and get a conservation CDUA, Conservation District Use Application. And if the state approves it, CDUP, Conservation District Use Permit, and whatever that states, that the state allowed is what we, or at least in zoning, would follow. So they have to get the state approval, and then we just do whatever the state says that they can do, because they've gone through the process with the state.
Okay. So in that case, I'm not making a motion, but I think the part in red can just be removed, in which case it just says exactly what it says above. In other words, we're not getting involved in the state land because we don't have any influence over it anyway.
I make a motion that we include the first paragraph and delete the rest.
Second by Mike. There was competition, but Mike won. Discussion? Any objections? Okay. That's it. That is the land use designation. So finishing that, and at this point opening public testimony on the Ma'alaya land use designations. Do we have any testifiers on Ma'alaya land use designations?
I believe the first testifier is Randy Wagner is here. Are you speaking with that? Okay, not that. The next on the list is Jim Shepard. Do you have any comments on? He left. Okay. Online testimony, we have Robin Knox, Lucien, and Claire Apana. Do any of you have comments on the Ma'alaya? Can they hear us?
Lucien testified last time on Ma'alaya. So.
Robin Knox, no, not on Ma'alaya. So I'm not seeing any online comment.
Okay, public testimony closed on Ma'alaya. So we had one area left, which of course is a very important area, the triangle. Daniel?
So we're in section 3.3. So Claire, right here, it's louder.
We are in section 3.3, community plan map and subareas.
See here? That's the front page. Yeah, there.
I'd like to make a correction on page 74.
Are you going into discussion? And is this for Ma'alaya?
We're finishing the land use designation. We didn't finish the triangle, so we're discussing the triangle.
So we're starting on letter D for testimony and offering testimony for item D?
Yes.
Okay. Clara Pana, are you still there and would you like to testify? Claire?
Okay, so Albert
There
Rose
she
would
is.
like to testify on D.
Claire, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Albert Rose just said he wants to speak.
Okay, so Clara Ponder, we're going to move on to the next testifier.
Albert Rose apparently. There she said.
And Claire's back.
Hello.
There we go.
Okay, I can't get on.
You're on. We can see your head.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I believe I testified on this. Did I?
At the first meeting, maybe? That was on Ma'alaya?
Yes. Did I? I don't know if that's what you're counting. I hear you saying other people have testified.
It counts for the last meeting because this is a recessed meeting, so you can't retestify on an item you testified in the last meeting.
The very last meeting?
Yes, that meeting.
Okay, I did not testify at that meeting. I testified at a previous meeting. Okay. On the designation, I previously asked you to think of the cultural importance of the area in deciding the designation, and although it is all businesses there, does your designation also allow for, that you are considering, also allow for residential? And if it does, what kind of residential are you looking at? I keep hearing this mixed business, commercial, and residential, and the people saying the need for a housing, but I don't hear a limitation on what kind of housing can go into these areas. What I've seen in areas such as this is a real move towards the mixed use being mixed with really high-end properties, and I would hope that you would limit that these properties that are only developed for people who probably do not live here and will then be adding housing for people who are not the people that we are targeting. And so well, that is essentially what I want to say about the Ma'alaya Triangle for now.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Are there any questions? There's no questions, so we will go to Albert for item D. Just to clarify, since this is a recessed meeting, it's testifying on one item at a time. It's not grouping all the items into one testimony.
So I'm still confused because my agenda says item D is Ma'alaya. So before I begin my testimony, could I get some clarification?
Item D is Ma'alaya, and that was what the chair asked if anyone had testimony on first. So I was following the chair's lead on that.
So I was ready to testify on that, but so am I allowed to testify on that now? Because I was going in order. Anyway, my point is more general. You know, the exact uses, my sense is that it's mostly up to the people who live in South Maui. But I just want to say that I would be very careful with the employment center designation or any other designation that allows retail. If the areas that you designate are too large, they would allow development of another mega mall, for example. And the area from which retail draws traffic is very hard to control unless you keep it small. If you want to keep it neighborhood serving, you need to keep these designations small, not like a 600-acre piece. And they should be interspersed throughout larger areas to make them more pedestrian friendly. And I just want to say that, you know, in terms of the question that keeps coming up is, it's very clear. The state law says that the community plan, part of the general plan, rules over the zoning. So that's why I keep referring to figure 1.3 in the draft plan. I included in my written testimony, and a similar figure appears in the existing community plan. The zoning is one of the ways that you implement the community plan, not the other way around. And when I hear that, oh, you shouldn't do that because the zoning isn't consistent, that's backwards. Zoning can give refined guidance within the boundaries set for it by the community plan. And that's supported by state law HRS 46-4. You have the power, CPAC members, you have the power to write this plan so it supports your vision for South Maui. This is your community plan, and this is your chance to have your say. If you listen to people who tell you that the community plan has no power, and you make it vague and powerless, then you will have given away your power. The more specific you can be, the less chance that your vision will be ignored. Mahalo.
Any other testifiers on Ma'alaya?
Any other testifiers on Ma'alaya? Last call. Okay.
Okay, so we're on page 89. Land use designation for the triangle. Okay.
Okay, so the last time we were on this, you know, I was struggling mightily, so I had abstained a vote. Like Vernon mentioned earlier when we first started the meeting, it's a learning process for myself. I think fears of what might be built in that triangle area is what my main concern is. The height of these things, the spectrum of what it may be for business. I don't know if any of you have passed by that area lately, but there's a construction fence. A landowner has decided that Ma'alaya really needs a Starbucks. So we got a Starbucks coming up in Ma'alaya. So I get landowners have certain rights, but I mean, I think I mentioned in a comment a few meetings back that that whole triangle area, I can tell you the history of it. I used to ride mongoose bike through the cane fields over there. Just because places get sold, I think we still need to be careful that landowners understand what a community needs and not so much what they want. So the land use designation is challenging for myself. We kind of didn't agree on some stuff, some of us small town center. I think our new language helped. So thank you for everyone for going through all this process. There's not much room over there. So what is of room right now, I can't see any other way but for further development to redevelop the parking lot areas, right? So now, so parking, so it's still a little difficult for me to wrap around what can and should be developed in this area. But I think through everyone's guidance, we can come to something. Like I said, it's very sensitive for myself. Malaya is a place that is in desperate need of catching up on a lot of environmental issues right now. I don't feel like things like Starbucks are really helping, I should say. So things like that I'm strongly opposed to. That's just my opinion on it. If we can proceed with what we can get out of the way for this triangle area, that would be great. I don't really have any specific ideas right now. I know the last time we kind of narrowed it down to small town center, employment center, right? So it's all talk story.
Daniel?
I wanted to know what specific lot is being built on. I mean, there are a couple. There's an empty lot.
So right now,
Nothing up there.
if you just envision the Carl's Jr. gas station area, and you go towards the ocean side, there's like a carpool parking lot that people be using the carpool.
Is it the first one?
Yeah.
As you pass the first
It's
one?
right next to that. Yeah.
It's not the first one, it's the one next to it.
Run right next to the parking lot.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So where you see the very tip on the northern side, that's the water park, and then they have a parking lot, and then you have the Carl's Jr. and a gas station, and then right below the Carl's Jr. there's a parking lot area that is right. Yeah, you had the arrow kind of pretty close.
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, so you see Carl's Jr. You come down across the street, there's an empty space that's a parking lot. So that yeah, yeah, it's on the Maui Road side, not the Honopi'ilani side. Yeah, right there.
Oh,
That's
that.
where it is.
Over there, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's going to be a Starbucks.
Macchiatos and lattes coming.
So can we get a motion to get this discussion started for what designation to use for the triangle?
So I think we all agree transit-oriented corridor is pretty much not something we want to see in that area. I understand the geographical location for planning. When this was, when I first looked at this, I was just wondering what was the genesis of making this aside from its geographical location. Do you think that was the sole reason for this place being transit-oriented corridor?
It is currently a bus hub.
Correct.
It is already a developed parcel, meaning it doesn't have a lot of green space in it. It already has utilities, so those make it a good candidate to be developed for more transient-oriented uses. And it's kind of the center of central Maui and South Maui and West Maui, yeah.
Cody?
I'm just kind of going off what Kyoki was saying. I think one of the sad parts, looking at this situation and trying to figure out a designation for me is that when I look at Ma'alaya, I think of like this pico, this center of the Aina, where the reef was once very vibrant. It is a wetland, and there's waters that once flowed from Haleakala and from Mauna Kahalavai that flowed into this area. And it's too bad that we don't have designations to really honor what the Aina was really meant for, and we're looking at these small parcels of land and trying to figure out what to do with it when Ma'alaya is so much more than that, and what can we do to try and bring back some of that life that really is Ma'alaya. I think it's hard for us, for people like me who always look at these things with that cultural lens, how to plan for something like this. It's just hard.
Well, I think one consideration is it's actually, like Kyoki said, it's almost entirely built already. We have a whole bunch. We have the Maui Ocean Center. We have Pacific Whale Foundation. We have a bunch of shops there. We're not throwing them out. I mean, whatever designation we come up with has to, I think, allow them to stay.
Right. I think for me, that even calls for more of a wake up, to show that, okay, we have all these things. What can we do to fix the infrastructure of the Aina in better ways instead of adding to it, instead of making it worse? Instead of saying, oh, to get this, okay, we're just going to put this then, since it falls right in line with this. No, how come we don't look at them like we kind of pushing the limits on what's going on with the entire, what Ma'alaya is. And when I look at Ma'alaya, and I'm just looking at these triangles that we've been splitting up, I'm looking at the reef, the wetland, the mountains that feed this place. Why can't we set a designation to acknowledge the Aina, acknowledge the resources for a delicate place like this, and to try and find ways to bring that back instead of putting it into another hole?
We could split up the triangle, make it more than one area with different designations, but there's just not much left there. I mean, it's fully developed really with the Maui Ocean Center and the other businesses there. Everett?
Reading the Transit Orient Corridor permitted uses, I don't see those uses being appropriate for the triangle. I don't see warehousing or high density, medium to high density residential use or schools. I think it might be more appropriate for small town center, where you have low density commercial, low to medium density housing, as opposed to medium to high density housing and industrial.
Kyoki?
Thank you, Everett. I agree. So one of my fears, we're talking about the red area here, and we already designated the green areas to stay the way they are. If you look at the Holy Street line of the condominiums, that's in the yellow. At the top of it, behind that, is Mahipono land, right? If you come down to that big blue square, which is the, by the way, that's the engineering marvel that was made to cure the canal stream problem. I'm getting sidetracked, but just so you know, in case you guys like go visit this engineering marvel, the land right next to it, which is in green, that's private owned. Private owned, not Mahipono anymore. So what will our land designation for the triangle have the potential to affect that as far as development? You see where I'm going? Trying to stay a little bit ahead of the game. If something changes with that zoning wise and whatever. I know we're going back to zoning, I'm sorry, but that's a fear too. And I'm pretty sure I speak for a lot of Maui residents when I talk about that. Will that also promote that? And then it'd be a big mess. Sorry if it didn't help. I just made it worse, but I'm just trying to keep it real, you guys. Like, I make fun of that basin, but that was supposed to help remedy the problem of canal diversion. All that hardened surface of the triangle, if you ask me, has contributed to all that runoff. It doesn't take long in Maui to rain before you see the brown plume from the corner of the harbor by the Coast Guard area start making its way out the harbor mouth. And I saw that recently, one of our last ones. It doesn't take long. And I know from living there, being Maui with this, that all that water comes from the highway and those hardened surfaces. So I just want to stress we need to be really careful what we want to build, you know. Yep, that's where I'm at with that.
Daniel?
So we're here. So we're here because we didn't vote to designate that as transient, right? Oriented. What's it called? Transient oriented center. Corridor, right? Corridor. And small town center is not an approved designation because we didn't approve it. We didn't adopt it. So I think I will move to make the Kihei McKenna Community Plan the default for things that are not adopted. That's my motion. The Kihei McKenna Community Plan would be the designation. That's the current plan, the existing plan. These are recommended from the planning department, and we're not finding our answer with the recommended land use designations. So the default, the fallback should be we look at the Kihei McKenna Community Plan and work with the language in there and to find what fits for this. Because right now I believe it's C in the Kihei Community Plan for commercial. So that's my motion.
Also, in that plan, it's page 18 where I found some of the language on Maui in the Kihei right there. In case anybody wants to read it real quick.
So is there a second for Daniel's motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Gilkey. Okay, so we do have a small town center designation. It's just has a different content from what was proposed before.
I think we all agreed it wasn't appropriate to be a transit-oriented. Where we had very little members too, if you recall that meeting. Yeah, everyone had other prior. I think it was between small town center and was it employment center?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Employment center corresponds to commercial. When?
Mr. Chairman, to planning, what is on the map right now, on the CAC map for this area?
It's currently designated commercial, business commercial.
Point of order. I thought we voted on this at the last meeting, at least in my notes. when we were going through the different land use designations, we got to small town center, and that failed to get adopted. That's what I have in my notes. Does someone have something different in their notes?
No.
That's what I recollect.
We have not decided on the designation for this triangle. That's correct. That's what we're doing right now.
No, but I'm talking about the designation of small town center.
We did that this time.
That was adopted?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was a second, yes, by Kyoki. So I guess the motion is to make it business commercial, which is not a designation that we have. We just finished defining what designations we have, but you want to apply business commercial to it rather than one of the ones we just decided to adopt?
So are you finding where that is located in our current designations? So we can
Employment center is the one that's most similar to business commercial. And just the difference between those is that employment center does not allow for any residential, whereas small town center allows for both.
See, and then that's where the difficulty comes in, yeah. So I know I second it, but I'm just saying, now you understand how this tiny little piece is difficult because it could lead to other things too, you know.
Just a correction, when you guys adopted the language, it was business commercial with the definition that's currently in the Kihei McKenna Community Plan. So it really just is anything that's retail, offices, entertainment. It's very unlimited.
I have a bunch of people raising their hands here. Everett first.
Sorry, it was BMF. I was reading the wrong part. So that's the multifamilies.
Keone, I think of the, between the existing, or between small town center, I think my impression is small town center is less intensive. It would have less of an impact. And I hear you loud and clear on the green parcel across the street, but it's green and it's not on the community plan, and if anybody ever wanted to do something on that, they would have to change the community plan and go through a zoning process, and I don't think that's ever, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I don't see it being supported. So between transit-oriented corridor or the business, I think small town center is the least intensive of all of them.
Right. That would, so the main concerns are the densities, right? Height limits, those type of things. I think that they are addressed as best in our, revised.
So I'm not going to support the motion because I think it should be small town center, not commercial.
Okay, yeah, we have a bunch of people. Brian next.
I guess I would have a counter proposal from small town. Why would we not consider neighborhood center? Key from what I'm hearing is that housing is critical. It is a good transit junction that for people that are working in South Maui or going to the west side. So why wouldn't we want to consider reducing the amount of commercial and raising the level of residential?
So the difference is that between neighborhood center and small town center is that one has businesses which cater to the local neighborhood, the other one to a larger region. Pacific Maui Ocean Center, Pacific Well Foundation, pretty much every single business there caters not to the neighborhood, but to Kihei. I mean to Maui. So that'd be totally invalidating all the existing businesses there.
But that's a separate parcel.
No. We're talking about the same one. This is the triangle.
It's part of it.
It's this triangle we're talking about. Wayne?
Mr. Chairman.
So it's tricky.
Can you get planning to describe the colors that we're discussing right now? I don't think everybody knows what they're talking about.
So we're talking about the red part, which is the triangle, which is transit-oriented corridor. The red part only. We already talked about the other ones.
Karen, can you give us clarification? What we're discussing right now?
Just the red triangle right here, because last time you adopted the rest of it that has the EC, the residential is the yellow. The light lavenderish color is economic center. And then the rest of this is agriculture land, with the darker parts being open space. So you see like the small dark parts. It also has the map underneath, so some of the color might be a little off because that is the map.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead.
So if we have residential there already, and then we have the business center or economic center or whatever the purple's called, why can't the red be residential? If we have residential right next to where the purple is already, why couldn't we say that that's what we want for the red, so that we have housing and we have minimal commercial? I mean, I guess I'm not grasping why you're saying it would be invalidated.
We have Maui Ocean Center, we have
Right,
Pacific Well Foundation, we have all those other things.
Right, but you have residential in the yellow that is there already.
Residential is in the yellow. Maui Ocean Center and Pacific Well Foundation are in the red. And we're talking about the red.
So could we not parse out that so that...
So we only have the parking lot?
I'm just throwing out options, just trying to...
Kyoki?
So if you think about this, if you're talking about tearing out the parking lot and building something, if you tore out well, not all the parking lot, but if you tore out a portion of the parking lot and then you come to dirt, isn't that open space? You see what I mean? I mean, when that place was built, it looked really weird. This huge parking lot and these tiny little commercial lots that are facing the Maui roadside. That's how it was first presented and tried to be marketed, as selling these tiny little commercial lots, using the Ocean Center and Carl's Jr. and the water park as an anchor to attract some type of business. Well, crickets, right? Decades of crickets. So now you had one landowner bite, and they're building a Starbucks. And so it's like, anyway, that Starbucks, I tell you what, they're not going to have a problem with parking. There's tons of parking for that Starbucks. But that area is already being used as somewhat of a transit-oriented. People are carpooling there. They're catching the Maui bus. So if you're talking about building a type of little hub center with coverings so people don't have to wait in the weather or whatever, that would be a more functional type of option for that area. But blowing it up and having the possibility of these developments, and when we talk about housing, what kind of housing, who are we targeting? If you say affordable, I have a hard time believing that, right? So that's where I am at with my train of thought. And I know I jumped on board his motion. I'm thinking of revoking it, but it's a sensitive area. It's difficult to choose a designation that fits this area. So if, like Cody was telling me, is there something we can tag or designate specific to this particular place? And I'm sorry to make like Maui so special, but it's so special to me, and a lot of other people. And like, I just cannot stress enough the fragility, and I've said this all along from day one, the fragility of this area. It's already compromised. We need to catch up on a lot of things in this place to help heal this environment. Building more inappropriate things is not going to be the answer.
on that. Small town center is probably the best designation because that's kind of what you already have there. TOC would be allowing a more intense development over time. It's to allow for redevelopment. So to address, damn it, Brian left. I'm not allowed to. To address what Brian just said, when we went through and created the maps, it was based on comments, but it's also, the first thing is the use on the property. So if there's a commercial center on a property, we can't designate that open space. There's a commercial use already there.
I just kind of threw that out there.
Wouldn't we all love to just kick everyone off?
I'm getting tired too.
I know, I think 8:30 is a good cutoff. But the next thing is we look at to see the community plan. So if you have like a lot that's open and the community plan says business commercial, even if the zoning underneath says hotel, we might zone it or we might designate it as business commercial based on the old community plan. So there's layers to why the designations are the way they are. And you can go to a less intense mixed use, but to just throw out a random designation, if we did that for every community plan and you had to look up every single parcel, what it means, these maps wouldn't really mean much.
Everett?
I think we have a motion on the floor in a second. Why don't we call for the vote on that? See what happens on that.
Okay, Chair, yeah, I did make a motion. There was a second. And then this discussion was not about the motion that was on the floor. It was about everything else. But nobody brought it back to the motion, and that should have been the discussion. But that didn't happen. There was no discussion on the motion. You just went off track.
Well, I believe it started that way. Excuse me. Sorry. Go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so the motion was to use the McKenna Community Plan as a default and find land use designations there since to use, since we're in trouble using the proposed recommended land use designations for this triangle. So that was motion second, and that's what's on the floor.
But Kilke, you revoked your second?
I think I'm going to, just because what started us down the path was the fact that by default this plan would mention the business commercial side a little too heavily and not as much for other stuff. So I don't think I was in well thought by seconding that. So I think I'm going to revoke my second. Yep.
Is there any other second? Okay, so the motion fails. Everett?
I move that we adopt small town center for this property.
Is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, here we go again. Bringing Honolulu to Maui. More concrete, more urbanization. For you people on Maui watching this program, this is what this motion is all about. Bringing another Honolulu coffee company. Who cares? What we don't need is more concrete and our lifestyle being changed on Maui. I'm voting against the motion.
Vernon?
Hey, Jackie, so you might notice, so remember they changed some of that zoning, yeah, for the extension or improvement of the Maui Marine, like healing center or something. You remember? Yeah. You know, like protect the Honu. You remember this went to council, they changed the zoning over there? Like a B something.
There's a proposal.
Oh, a proposal.
There's a proposal for the change of zoning. It hasn't been passed yet. I don't even know if they've had a public hearing yet.
Yeah, it's a Maui Marine.
Yes, the Marine Hospital.
Hospital.
Yes, but like I said, I don't think the public hearing, I can't remember if the public hearing has even been scheduled yet. So it has not passed yet.
So let's say we did a small town center, would that impact that proposed?
It shouldn't, because small town center has, you know, these kind of small uses, so it should be consistent.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion? Any objections?
Are you voting on, can you restate the motion, please?
The motion is small town center designation for the triangle. At the vote, okay. So those in favor, please
Hey,
raise your
Rob.
hand.
Rob, just comment.
Oh.
Would that include the height limit? Yeah, the one you had last night.
Wait, no, because we replaced the content of small town center with Daniel's text, so there's no height limit anymore.
So that was the.
We lost that.
Yep.
The text simply says this includes a mixture of retail, office, and commercial services which are oriented to neighborhood service and single-family and multifamily residential uses.
Yes. Jackie.
Regarding that particular project, the height will be covered in the special management area process, so that's going to be covered. And they've already stated that they don't want to go very high. They are very well aware of community concerns about height. But like I mentioned, that's going to be covered when they go in for their special management area major permit.
Yeah, that way, that's the one kind of maybe get weird sometimes.
There's a public hearing process for that.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Kyoki.
Yeah, so see, here we go. I mean, thank you for bringing that up, because I was under the impression there was a height. It's hard. It's trying to pick the least of the evils, I feel. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about this. Without knowing, right, it's difficult to vote right now. So.
So one way or another, it's going to have a designation. And if you don't vote, it's going to have a designation you don't want. So I would recommend that you vote for a designation that you
picking the least of
prefer.
evils.
Daniel?
Can we put up on the screen what we're voting for?
I can't change the colors on the map. It would be this triangle right here.
No, the language.
So it's small town center that you're doing right now, right?
Yes.
What we've adopted, can that be put on the screen?
I don't think your vote included the permitted uses. It was just this language right here.
That's correct.
Okay, so what we're calling small town center is the language in the Key McKenna plan, right? See, that's where I'm getting confused, because we're calling it small town center instead of BMF. Okay, that's what we're voting on.
Okay, are we ready to vote? I think we need to move on. So those in favor of small town center designation, please raise your hand.
Everybody on this side.
And those voting against? And abstentions? Not Vernon, Keoki, right? And Cody. Keoki.
Yeah, I'm looking at you too.
Okay. Okay. So that motion passes. And with that, we're done with Ma'alaya. Can we forge on another half an hour, or do we need to take a break? Move on?
I think
Continue? Okay.
I think we should, because, get some people over here waiting
Right.
for a long
Okay.
time.
So concluding Ma'alaya, so now opening public testimony on land use designations for North Kihei.
Ms. Wagner? Yeah.
Before I begin my testimony, I want to thank you all for doing this grueling job. I can't believe it. I'm very impressed with all the different points of view and how you resolve things and respect each other. Okay, so I'm here to testify in support of specific policies for North Kihei Mauka. My name is Randy Wagner. I'm an architect, and I've been a Kihei resident in Central Kihei for over 30 years. My children have grown up here, and my grandchildren are now growing up here. I'm a board member of KCA, on the Design Review Committee, on the Cultural Resources Commission. So you can see that my heart is in Kihei, and I'm very familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of the issues we face. North Kihei Mauka could be a disaster, or it can be a benefit to our quality of life in Kihei. If this area is allowed to develop willy-nilly without addressing the real needs and issues facing all of Kihei, then it will just add to our problems. Currently, we suffer from a lack of housing, poor infrastructure, congested traffic, flooding, mud inundation, and ocean pollution. All these problems can be addressed by creating a master plan for North Kihei Mauka. What we need most are neighborhoods and neighborhood centers. There's no need for a small town center. Central Kihei is already our small town. We do not need to duplicate it with another small town center. But first, there's some very important policies and actions to be established and implemented prior to any residential or commercial development being allowed. Number one, a new archaeological examination and recordation of the entire area must be complete and a specific cultural preservation plan established. Number two, a multimodal transit route from Lapoa Street to the Veterans Highway must be fully functioning, that is separate from the Pialani Highway. Number three, stormwater flooding and mud inundation must have been mitigated with Mauka retention areas and low impact design solutions. And number four, a master plan of the area must have been developed. So the desired characteristics of the master plan would include a central common area or village green, a site for an elementary school, distinct neighborhoods with housing of varied types and sizes that prioritize affordability, neighborhood centers that will reduce the need for car trips out of the area, walking and biking paths that interconnect the neighborhoods and neighborhood centers, gulches and drainage ways that remain open and protected, streets that have sidewalks and trees and are designed with traffic calming measures, including roundabouts, and considerations for open space and for parks. One immediate action that I think should be done as soon as possible is to build a paved and shaded walking, cycling path, Mauka of and separated from Pialani Highway, from Lapoa Street to the Ohukai Light Industrial Area. It is needed currently for high school student safety. So in conclusion, you volunteers are in a very powerful position to truly be helpful in solving some of our pressing problems. Please consider the policies I've proposed here, and thank you. got that in
Thank
3
you.
minutes, right?
Questions? Question first from Keoki.
Sorry, Chair Rob, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for being so patient and offering your manao. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Other clarifying questions? Randall?
Yes, this is a clarifying question. Are you proposing a third elementary school, one in North Kihei?
Yeah, I think we need one. At least we need a site designated for one. My proposal is that we plan ahead. We think about far into the future, and we don't just play whack-a-mole.
Daniel? Oh, Verna first.
Hi, Randy. So
Hi,
you
Verna.
on the design review, do you have opportunity and a chance to like meet with landowners?
I do.
Okay.
I see all kinds of development, and I see all kinds of things that are allowed that I think are really not appropriate, but they're approved. And they're approved without adequate infrastructure. And the reason that I think we need specific policy for this area is because the policies that are really beautifully written in our current community plan are totally ignored. They're general policies that apply to everything, like infrastructure should be concurrent with development. Totally ignored. So that's why I think in this case, we need specific policies for this specific area, because we're at a breaking point, and if we just keep doing what we're doing, it's disaster.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? Daniel?
Hi, Randy. Thanks for waiting
Daniel.
with us. My question has to do with infrastructure. So in the Kihei McKenna Community Plan, it mentions numerous times that infrastructure should be built, in some cases prior to development, and other cases prior to and concurrent with development. Now, it seems like the key infrastructure things that you mentioned are roadway and maybe storm control, stormwater control.
And the cultural analysis.
Okay, and archaeological studies, cultural studies. So what would be the phasing? Do you feel that the road should be built prior to anything else happening, or
I do.
concurrent with?
I think it should be built prior. I think it should be designed fully prior, because I don't think we can tolerate any more development in Kihei on Piilani traffic-wise and mud-wise until there's an escape valve. Because even if the north-south collector road is completed, it's not even continuous. And the idea that there's going to be, the county's going to do eminent domain to make it continuous doesn't make sense. No one's going to take down Kalama Heights. I think we need another road before any more development occurs. Personally, I don't think there should be any more development Makai of the highway, period. Maybe I'm a bit extreme. And I don't think there should be any more development above that's not already entitled, because I know some stuff is entitled, but any new proposed development until there is an alternate route that exits Kihei past the North Kihei Road onto the Veterans Highway.
And just a couple more clarifying questions. Are you testifying as an individual today?
I am, however, I have thoroughly discussed all these ideas with all the board members of KCA. So they're well aware, and no one has ever told me that they disagreed, but I am testifying as an individual tonight.
So is the completion of the, let's call it Mauka Road, Mauka Piilani Highway, is that your highest priority for what should happen north of Piilani Highway?
No, I think all of the policies that I mentioned are important. Every single one of them is really important.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks.
Any other clarifying questions? Wayne?
Glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Reading some page 17. This is the document we now have
Right.
in our hands.
Right.
This is law. I don't want to be a lawbreaker. I don't think none of these people want to be. If I read from you on page 17, upon adoption of this plan, allow no further development unless infrastructure, public facilities, and services needed to service new development are available prior to or concurrent with the impacts of new development. If you were a developer, what is your understanding? What this law reads now? Are you
Well,
breaking the law? Or are we breaking the law?
Yes, I think we're breaking the law. I think we are breaking the law because I see when I review projects, I see the traffic analyses and I see the roads have, Ds and Es and Fs on their functioning. And then we still add more development on top of the already malfunctioning roads. And I mean, just try to drive around here at rush hour or when school's getting out. I mean, I have grandkids that have to get picked up from school and it's traffic jams.
Again, thank you for serving the Kia community.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier on North Kihei land use designations.
Chair, we have Robin Knox testifying virtually. Blue Jeans.
Aloha. Let's see. Oh, there I am. Okay. Thank you, Planning Department, for finally getting the hybrid meetings. It's very helpful. I would not be able to testify otherwise. So, a couple of things looking at the map. When I look at the far north part of the area where you have the industrial, the Central Bay Shard, I see a stream that borders against where the existing industrial area is, and it looks like that you want to expand it. I'm not sure I understand it correctly, the drawing. But in any case, that stream needs an extra wide open space buffer because industrial activities really pollute streams, and they tend to have a lot of impervious surface, which could cause a lot of erosion and washing off of pollution. So that needs to be a wider path of open space around that stream, if that could be done. Coming down into the more populated area of North Kihei, I would like to see what is now on this map as residential, undeveloped residential area that, to the north of Ohukai area, and also the eastern edge of what is now shown as small town center. I would like to see all of that as rural residential, to be a buffer zone between residential and agricultural lands. So I think the rural residential designation is appropriate for that. And that was one of the things I requested at the beginning of this planning process, is that there would be more rural residential options in Kihei. I think the small town center designation there is way too much area and would be really prone to bringing in a lot more commercial development than we want. I think we need residential more, and I would like to see less dense residential. And I think the neighborhood, I don't know if I'm getting all the words right, but the neighborhood centers, I think those would be okay, but we don't need any bigger than neighborhood size town centers. Let's see, and in general, everywhere up here, we need to limit the impervious surface. That is the scariest thing to me about, I do believe that we need to develop Malka of the Highway. I agree with Randy, we should not be developing anything Makai of the Highway. but
2-minute
putting a
notice.
lot more impervious surface above the highway is just going to make everything that we're dealing with worse. Water pollution, flooding, erosion, all of that. So those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. And next testifier.
Chair, next we have Albert Perez testifying virtually.
Albert Perez has already testified on North Kihei land use designations. Do we have anyone else?
I did not.
No one else? Okay.
Excuse me. I did not testify in that.
Yes, you did last time.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I don't think this committee is here to police public testimony. If he signed up to speak on any agenda item, let him speak.
He already spoke. We have only one. This is a continued meeting, so only one testimony on a particular topic.
I've
So
been
that-
sitting here waiting, and I was told that I could testify on this one, so that's why I'm here. And I just have a very short thing to add, if you would let me, Chair.
Okay, make it very, very short.
Thank you very much. So I really support all of the testimonies that I've heard, in particular Randy Wagner, Robin Knox. And I think I have a solution to this, because I've been worried about, if we put a road Mauka, would that encourage development? We don't need more development, Mauka of Pi'ilani, but if we were to put in a Mauka road that provides another way to get out of South Maui, and surround it with open space designations, then we could have that other way to get out of South Maui without encouraging development. And I'll stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Any further testifiers on North Kihei land use designations? No.
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, closing testimony on North Kihei land use designations.
I signed up to testify on that, Lucienne Diné.
Okay, I didn't see Lucienne still on the call there. Is she on?
Yeah, I had to drop off. I'm back on.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Sorry, Chair.
So is it okay to testify?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for your consideration. So I'm Lucienne Diné. I've been here many times to testify. The sub-area 2 maps, there's kind of a key parcel in there, the Ko'ono'ulu industrial site. It should be very carefully considered in this plan. First of all, it has a sub, it's surrounded by Kalanakoi stream, and then it has another branch stream that
I
comes
cannot
through it.
clearly hear the testifier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm speaking through microphone. Can you hear now? Can anyone hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. My apologies. I was trying to use earphones and microphone. So I just wanted to speak to the Ko'ono'ulu industrial site, which is in this area. It is proposed to be one of these ubiquitous, town center type of things. But it's a very, very special place, and that its special nature is not being acknowledged. First of all, it's an area where a lot of floodwaters come across, and it is it is bordered by one of our most flood-prone streams, Kulani Hakoi. Secondly, it is a actual important archaeological area This area was actually marked by a petroglyph stone. It is the only known evidence of a petroglyph stone, a stone with a petroglyph incised into it, found Nauka of the highway in proximity to the coastal zone in all of Kihei. That marker was telling us something. The land has 25 acknowledged archaeological sites, and actually more that are not acknowledged. Most of them have pre-contact artifacts associated with them, and yet we're looking at just grading it and making it into a bunch of commercial and houses. There is supposed to be a small preserve here that the community fought for. It is a very, very special place, and I would bow to the wisdom of a gentleman who's a lifelong fisherman and lives right around the corner from this area and walks over there frequently, who shared with me. He said, this is the place to take care of the waters. He says it's not a place for development. It should be a very special place where we have like some sort of a permaculture design to absorb waters. And I don't know how you put that in a category in your plan, but it really is like not a good place for commercial / housing to just be piled into it. Perhaps some of the borders would be appropriate for that, but not the whole 88-acre parcel. So I would like to just ask your consideration of that. And also one other thing, what happens to Project District 5? It looks like one section of it becomes a special purpose district. I'm not sure if that light blue color is supposed to be special purpose district or if it's supposed to be public, quasi-public. But Project District 5, which includes where the Hope Chapel is and where Pi'ilani neighborhood is, has specific goals in our zoning. And what are we changing it into by putting it in that blue designation? It's not clear to me. Also, I am happy to see that Project District 6, which is the wetland that is at the gateway to South Maui, the Weinberg land, is finally being recognized as a wetland and is moved from Project District to open space. So thank you very much for that.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you.
Chair, we did get one additional request for comment. Clara Pana would like to provide comment on item C, if it's allowed.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think that the testimony you've received tonight has been excellent about what needs to be done before you think about any development. What I see from my place in Wailuku is, why are you thinking about any more development in an agricultural area at all? Why would anyone who bought agricultural land or open space think that they should be able to develop that into residential areas? And from my point of view, you don't have water. And you're going to cut down trees and forests, and the only things that help South Maui to have water. And then you're going to rely on taking water, more water from Nawaiʻeha and from Haiku. That is really, really arrogant. Where is your water use and development plan where you save water and take care of your water needs? Cutting down all this land with forests on it and saying, well, okay, now we have to plan to build on it because it's there. I warn you, this is not most of your country. How dare you come and say, we have to plan to develop this land. This is not your land. Why do you get to screw it all up and cause all these problems with drainage to make it so unsafe and take our water when you are so frivolous, South Maui, in using your water? Please, please consider what you are doing. Where are the green spaces in here? Where are the open spaces? This is what this land should be. It should be conservation, because you don't have water. You should be conserving everything you have that can create water for you. Thank you very much.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Okay, so we are, any more testifiers? No, okay. Okay, so we're almost at 9 o'clock, so I think there's no point in starting on the discussion. However, I would like you all to read through and be prepared to discuss this sub-area North Kihei proposed changes in land use. And we're going to work from north to south, starting with map 1 along Maui Veterans Highway, and then on to map 2, North Kihei, including Pilani Promenade, Kihei, Mauka, etc. So starting next week. Everett?
Rob, can we recess this meeting?
If we recess it, then we'll have to start over with the Ma'alaya and the land use designations again. They're done? Just close those? Okay. Okay, so yes, then we can recess then.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments before I recess the meeting? I don't think we can refuse testimony by people who have not already testified on the topic of North Kihei. Okay.
Wait, you can close testimony, and then you have no testimony.
I get a continued meeting.
The Corporation Council said that if you have closed testimony, that part of the item is considered closed. What if you've, I guess you need to start discussion, so start discussion. Discuss something.
Regarding the north-south, I mean the North Kihei plan, I think we should start with maybe the northernmost section.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So close testimony?
Well, testimony is closed. I already did that. But we'll see for next meeting. But regardless, this meeting is recessed.